Hi, welcome back to talk about our wonderful book, Coaching with Powerful Interactions, Chapter 2. Today we'll talk about the five principles that are suggested in the book. I hope you had a chance to see some of the videos that were recommended to go when you were doing your readings. They just really teach us a different perspective of talking and how to focus on things. And that's exactly what we're going to go through the five different principles and kind of see what for me was the most relevant part to take away. So the first one is a strength-based perspective. So we're focusing on what people are doing right, not wrong. Individualizing supports the development of respectful, trusting relationships needed for learning. Three, articulation, sharing, observations, and describing. Four, a mutual learning partnership promotes shared responsibility and accountability. You're not alone. We're together in this, huh? It does help us build that sense of community and family that should be happening in every preschool. Modeling matters. So what you do, it will matter. If you're talking about a strategy that needs to be developed, you need to do it yourself. And what you say and do influence all outcomes, huh? So let's start with the first one. There we go. It's really focusing on what people do right. Looking at what we're doing wrong usually produces in people anger, frustration, anxiety, and it's not really trying to help us change to see things on a better way. So really looking at how we say things, you can still relay the message, is how we relay the message. For example, let's see these two messages here. I think you'll get the idea on how you say things. It's not that you don't have to say things, it's the way you say it and what are you focusing on. For example, do you know that today you were out of compliance? I saw children unattended in the sandbox this morning. I need you to work on a plan so this never happens again. So this sounds very straightforward, judgmental, and not really with a positive outcome, trying to look more like a punitive outcome. If you don't do it, I have to fire you. Instead of really building this community and feeling good about things and trying to improve. Instead, you could say something like, I noticed in the playground this morning that you and your assistant were planting. There was lively conversation and excitement. So you're really focusing that there was some stuff that they were doing. They were so having so much fun with the planting with the other kids that they forgot to supervise the other area. I also noticed a few kids were not supervised in the sand area. I wonder if you noticed that. Then we figure out a way so you and the other teachers support each other supervising in the playground. So it really turns this way of talking in a straight, direct, punitive way to a, I want to help you and focusing on what they were doing right. They were so engaged with the other children's planting that they forgot to do the other part of the job, which is very important and it cannot happen again. So how can we work with it? People will feel much more entitled to do it, huh? Instead of scared. Oh, let me see. Why is this the other way? Sorry, you guys. So the third one is articulation, sharing observations and describing. So articulation, it really talks about the why and what we do. So when you say to a person, oh, you should ask open-ended questions, but you don't know why it's important to ask open-ended questions, then how do you expect that person to really understand the importance? So really when you're telling something, you might be very articulated, like say, hey, I noticed that throughout your group time you had the kids quite engaged, and I found out that you had not done any open-ended questions to the children or very few. Hey, do you know why it's so important to ask open-ended questions? And then you would present maybe part of your research, or you might say, hey, I noticed that you didn't do it. I wonder how we could do it so we're using these questions because it's so important for their minds to be growing and thinking by not answering straightforward questions. And then you might go to class and look at the documentation there is about why it's so important to ask open-ended questions. And you're using this information in a way that you're not judging, but you're really helping others. I think one of the things that we do in preschool, and we're very aware of it, it's labeling our classroom because it gives a clear message of what goes in what area. You might even do a little drawing for the kids that don't know how to read labels yet. So it's very clear and articulated. So you're using a language that it's common. You can talk about the specific toys and the children will understand. And you may even customize it to everybody's cultures. We have to think too that we all come from different backgrounds. So talking to us in different ways, it's very important as long as we're getting the message transmitted. So this is a little bit going deeper on what we had talked, like when we're trying to talk about the best practices and then explain why do we do it. We need to ask open-ended questions because it helps us expand through process and language skills. We can use feedback loops, and this is all common language that we will be learning throughout the semester. For example, creates conversation in a sustained topic, builds relationships, and improves the quality feedback under class, which is one of the tools that we will be reviewing. And we're not going to learn everything, but we will be reviewing through the semester. Let me go a little bit higher. So the third step is individualizing supports the development of respectful, trusting relationships needed for learning. And you might have learned in any ECE course that without relationships, there is no growth. This is true to the adults too. You're not able to build a relationship of trust as a mentee, you're not going to be able to promote growth. They're going to be rejectful and fearful. They might do things out of fear, but that doesn't mean that it's going to promote the growth. Um, just like when we talk with children, we really have to tailor what we say and how we say it to fit the situation. What kind of situation is? Do we need to maybe be in a place alone, or is it when there's a lot of children? Is it a situation that it's like something that you have to say right away, or should you wait? Or is it better to just take a note or maybe do a demonstration? So you really have to take in consideration what's happening. Also, you have to take in consideration the personality. I am very open, and you can tell me things, and I might get upset or whatever, but I'll take it and I'll help you out. Some people need more privacy and they need more time and they like things done in a different way. I am to be blamed for saying things at the wrong time and not realizing the impact because the way people are, they're different than me. The other thing we have to tailor is through their needs. Is this an important thing to work, or should we work based on what their first needs is? Just like with a child, you have to prioritize. You have to take into consideration their culture. Maybe it's part of their culture that they don't do certain things or do things in a certain way. I remember when I just came to the States, I was shocked because preschool they would throw away so much food. They would play with food. I came from Chile and I had my first experience of in a preschool. The rationale to select children was because they were malnourished. Now, when you think about this, you also think about the center I was did not have money to buy food, so we needed to go out to beg for food and donations because we were a preschool, we would get these donations, but food was so scarce and it was such an item. We never, ever, ever would ever think about using it for play or for art or even like the food that was served for the children, they had to eat it. It was not a choice to choose. So when I came here, it was so shocking. Like, why would people throw away so much food? And it's not bad or good. It was a different situation. It's a different way of seeing things. I learned with time, that there's a lot of valuable sensory experience that might need some food. For example, you guys probably all use Play-Doh, and it was made with flour. We would have never used Play-Doh. The flour was to be made bread. That's what I mean. I mean, it depends on and then you can be overindulging. So that's the thing. You have to really take into consideration the culture, same as the linguistic background, and their interest, things that really motivate them. Then step or part number 4 was a mutual learning partnership promotes shared responsibility and accountability. This is really beautiful. I think it takes away the fact that we're on our own, but we want to work together as a family. So you really want to follow through with your commitments and responsibilities. How many times we're so busy, we said, oh yeah, let's meet. And then something happened with a child and life takes over and you never meet. I mean, we understand things happens, but we have to make sure um, that we come back at a later time and resume. The other vision that I want to talk and kind of change with this is that we must change our views from fixers to partners. We're not there to fix every problem. We're there to support the learning of new solutions. And if you're open to listen and research, you're going to find so many new things that are so much fun. That is why we create in our discussion boards so many help from others, because what you've lived, your experience, it's so valuable in improving others. And sometimes this little piece of advice can go so far. And I really would promote people to participate in that way because what it's extremely valuable. And the last one is modeling matters. What you say and do influences all outcomes. I think in page 37, there is something that it's so true. Attitudes are caught, not taught. Today we were talking with my children about the dogs and how you can say anything to the dog depends on your body posture. So when we're talking about saying things, we're not just talking about the words that are coming out of your mouth, but the way your body posture is, the way you're moving. So you can tell a dog the most horrendous things in this cute voice and they'll still feel loved. The same, we have to be careful with people because when we say things, people sometimes don't get it because of our body attitude. So it's really important that we're coordinating those two parts. And the way you do things, if you're saying that you should be partners, versus a street person, you need to do it in your work. You need to follow that advice. If you say, hey, I noticed that we could improve our class score if you use open-ended questions, you better be a model of those open-ended questions and maybe be super explicit in those modeling behaviors. Instead of just using open-ended questions, you can say, make it explicit for the people observing. Oh, right now I used an open-ended question. Why did the blah, 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 blah? So you started that question with a why. So every time I start a question with a why or a what, I'm promoting open-ended questions. So it's very clear the importance and how you are showing it. Well, if you want more information about chapter 2, please make sure to read through the PowerPoint completely. It has a lot of my thoughts on it. This is my take, personal take, but also go into the book and make sure you watch those videos. They're quite fun and really caring, and it really gives you that modeling that sometimes we need to understand how things are done.